Hi, my name's Eddy Hackett. I'm the co-founder and executive producer of The Lost Estate. Our latest experience, Chat Noir, has just opened at our West Kensington venue and runs through till the end of September. So The Lost Estate, we are an immersive performance and hospitality company. We sit at the centre of three things. So live performance, where music is the central voice. So myself and the two other co-founders were classical musicians by training. So music is really central to what we do. We build a physical world where it feels like you have to, travel back in time to the thing you're seeing. And we make you feel like you're in the world because we offer a hospitality service that really feels like authentic to the world that you're in. So hopefully the sum of all of those parts is you cross a threshold at one of our venues and you feel like you've time travelled back to the place that you are going to be part of. Yeah, so Chat Noir, our latest experience, puts you right at the heart of this incredible real-life cabaret club called Le Chat Noir, which was the birthplace of the whole cabaret movement. So 1890s in Paris, in Montmartre specifically in Paris, there was this incredible club, and it was run by this amazing proprietor called Rudolph Sally, who was a classic impresario in the modern day terms, but he really curated this club full of poets and musicians and artists and thinkers and the great and the good of Paris. And in amongst that, he had all these incredible art forms that would regularly perform. So mime and music and poetry and the visual arts, all of that coming together in, I guess, a movement that felt very bohemian. And Chat Noir, as we do often at The Lost Estate, is really bringing that to life. We've got, it's quite funny, we talk often about sort of sexy history. It's a bit of a funny term, but we're bringing to life real life places and real life people in new and fantastical ways that feel modern and relevant to the 2026 world. At Chat Noir, you will feel like you've been transported back to 1896 to the club, Le Chat Noir in Montmartre. Inside the club, you're going to see incredible live performance. So you're going to see mime, you'll see lots of music making, you'll see chanson, you'll see burlesque, you'll see traditional kind of cabaret comparing. We've drawn upon some of the really fantastic cabaret artists from London. So amazing people like Joe Morose is our compere. He's playing Rudolph Sally. We've got people like Neil Kelso, who's this fantastic magician character called Joseph Boitier. Pi the Mime, who's London's premier mime, is performing in the show. So we've got really amazing cabaret performers. You'll also have, across the night, you'll have this amazing Parisian hospitality experience. So the menus have been drawn from some of the classic Parisian dishes of the day. So, there's coq au vin in there, there's tarte citron, there's lots of absinthe. So absinthe is one of the key spirits that we're using in the club. So absinthe really forms part not only of the show itself. The show is split up into these three themes: art, absinthe, anarchy. In the absinthe section, there's a whole sort of trippy absinthe dream that you go to where the world literally turns green and you kind of go down this amazing kind of kaleidoscopic world. But we actually serve incredible absinthe cocktails and absinthe drips, which is this really beautiful, it's like a sort of a water tower with tiny little fountains at the end. And you take absinthe, you put a shot of it in a glass, and you put a strainer with a sugar cube above that, and the water from this fountain drips through, diluting, or what's called lushing, the absinthe. And what gives it its amazing green colour. And you can dilute that as much or as little as you like. And it's one of the really kind of unique experiences. I'm actually proud to say that we've got 36 absinthe drips at Chat Noir, and we would literally think we bought the whole stock of absinthe drips in the UK. So I came into music relatively late. So, most classical musicians will be on a path from sort of 8, 9, 10, very, very early days. I started playing percussion when I was 15, and I just had this sort of love affair with it immediately. I was a child of Britpop, so I played guitar in bands, and Oasis and Blur and Pulp, and all of those bands were the bands that I listened to growing up, and I played drums a lot in bands and guitar. And I had this opportunity to play the bass drum in my school wind band, age 15, and I smacked that bass drum and just kind of fell in love with percussion straight away. And very quickly, I went from sort of enjoying playing these kind of ad hoc, very amateur, ensembles I was playing in at school, to then starting to do the kind of citywide and the county-wide things. I was brought up in Edinburgh, and Edinburgh has this really incredible, or had, I should say, in the 90s and early 2000s, had this really amazing, sort of local school, sort of infrastructure for music. And I went to the local state primary school, local state secondary school, and we were really lucky to have those facilities available to us. I had amazing teachers, again, that was just at the very grassroots level available at my local state school. And I just loved it. I just got completely obsessed by playing percussion, and I very quickly did my grades, so getting to grade 8 in a couple of years. And then I really had this sort of dual path. So I'd always been really interested in kind of physics and science and the planets and stars, and then music. So when I was applying to university, I did two things. So I didn't expect to get into music college. So my backup plan was that I was going to do astrophysics. So I basically applied and got into a bunch of universities to do astrophysics. And then auditioned for the Royal College of Music, Royal Academy of Music, and Trinity, and got into Trinity and the Academy, and I decided to go to the Royal Academy of Music. So I ended up doing my bachelor's there, and when I was 19, I won a small scholarship to go and study with a drummer called Joe Morello. So Joe Morello was Dave Brubeck's drummer. So if you know the famous song Take 5, he was the drummer on that. And he was this very famous technician. He lived out in New Jersey. So yeah, I had the opportunity to go out to New York. I studied with Joe for a week and basically fell in love with New York and the jazz scene out there. And I was just determined to go and live in New York for a bit. So in my final year of college, I applied to the Manhattan School of Music to do a master's degree there. And I was very lucky that I got in, and I was offered a scholarship to go. And I spent, I took a year out between finishing the academy and going to Manhattan School so that I could actually audition for other scholarship programs to be able to fund me doing that. So I was very lucky to have a load of funding to go out and do that. I spent 2 years doing my master's at Manhattan School, which was incredible. Such an amazing experience to both live in New York, study with these amazing teachers. I'd always played a lot of Cuban and world percussion, so I spent a lot of time playing on the salsa scene in New York, which was really fun and really opened me up to that style of music. And then I came back, and really between the ages of kind of 25 and I guess, like my late 30s, I was a full-time classical freelance percussionist, and I played with over 30 professional orchestras. So I did a lot of work with the London Philharmonic Orchestra, the Royal Opera House, the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra. I did a lot of work as guest principal. I did a lot of education work where I both was teaching in schools a couple of days a week, and then also doing a lot of education projects. So I traveled out to Japan with the Bournemouth Symphony Orchestra to work with children with special needs out there. I did a lot of recording sessions, played in the West End, and in amongst all of that, in the kind of mid-2010s, two things happened. So one was I had bumped into Will and Rowan just through happen chance, and they'd asked me to play principal percussion in an orchestra that they'd founded. And also I had known some people who asked me to become to chair a board at English National Opera. So English National Opera in the sort of early 2010s had a bunch of its Arts Council funding pulled. And one of the big sort of criticisms that was levelled at ENO was that it was not relevant enough to a young demographic. So I was asked to chair a board that basically over the course of a year sort of reported on that and gave its findings and recommendations to the main board. And so I got this kind of taste of like, life behind the curtain and what it would be like to run an organization. And so me and Will and Rowan in this orchestra, they asked me to become a director. That experience kind of fueled me onto that. And then basically the orchestra very gradually became the Lost Estate. We were always interested very early on in telling the untold tale behind the great works of classical music. And we started to do that through set design and cross arts performance and little bits of hospitality. And basically one thing led to another and the Lost Estate was founded. So that's my journey. I've been Eddy Hackett. Thank you so much for listening to me on Arts Pod, and I really look forward to welcoming you at the Lost Estate through our two experiences right now, Chat Noir and 58th Street. I'll see you there.